For our next talk, please welcome Alejandro Coca Castro and Anne Fouilloux.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I know that you are super tired, exhausted, see many amazing stuff about reproducibility, about notebooks, but in this case, our talk is more about a computational notebook community for open environmental science that is called Environmental Data Science Book. I am a research fellow at the Alan Turing Institute, and I'm going to present this with Anne. She's at the Similar Research Lab. So, Environmental Data Science Book, or EDS Book. What we mean is a living, free, and open online resource to showcase and support the publication of data, research, and open source tools for collaborative, reproducible, and transparent environmental data science. We have this illustration that in somehow this idea started with the Turing way. Turing way is a practical guide of reproducibility, but we were more focused in environmental scientists, and we were, through this initiative, trying to have executable notebooks that in environmental science we have researchers that are doing urban analysis or are doing more forest research of like cryosphere, whatever they're doing. We were thinking it was a good idea to have a single platform where people can discover this knowledge, in this case through Jupyter Book technologies, and this kind of notebooks can be communicated to a general audience, and we can, with those notebooks, start new science. And these notebooks, essentially, we're thinking something that is reproducible, scalable, and shareable. So, mission and vision. Okay, this is very important to mention about the community. Our mission is to educate and leverage good scientific software and data management practices among environmental scientists through peer-reviewed, fair, executable notebooks. We will have a demo to show how we are trying to approximate to this concept, even if it's still very fuzzy. And our vision is that environmental scientists work collaborative to demonstrate and communicate their science through fair executable notebooks and have gained significant skill to publish in notebook-based scholarly publication systems that maybe are you aware, these digital journals is a future. So we are aiming to train this future generation how to do this review process. Main motivation, I would say, like I see myself when I was doing my PhD, I went through, sorry, it's okay? Oh, it's not there? Oh, it's lagged, sorry. So this is another nice illustration that we participate in this Turing way with dashes, and we generate this general illustration you can use for your project if you have something similar. So just imagine myself in my PhD that I was very uncertain about my analysis. I don't know what to do, and it was really clear then to share to someone else. I guess it's a problem that is not only me, it's everyone is having that. So we tend to build a community who is thinking about how to improve the narrative, how to validate this with expert domains, how I can improve the software. How can this, like me, PhD student, know more about open source tools, not only for visualization, about how to open a dataset with open source software. So we are meant to have that. And at the end, we have the edit process that is like more like a kind of a small publishing system that you make a nice aesthetic notebook and you just check that everything's okay. And at the end, what we have is that people can reuse the notebooks for their own analysis. You will see that later. So, still a delay. Let's see next slide. There is a lag. I don't know why. Okay, this is where I see everything here in this screen. But okay, so far something that we have at this community is having a kind of publishing process. Everyone is welcome to participate, and we have defined certain roles, like a common role that we have in the regular publishing system. But something that we are innovating here is the community aspect. As you can see here, community, we mean anyone from the open source open science community can contribute. If you have an idea and you know how to create your notebook, you can have this stage where in the repository you can say, I have this idea, I need help. So we help with that. People start the conversation and start interacting with each other, but this is optional. But this notebook idea is where the first place where authors say, I have this notebook and I have maybe some ideas, so they communicate through this notebook idea. Then we have the preparation, pre-review and review. If you are familiar with JOS journal, there is very common in the journal to have certain templates. I won't go in details. And finally, another important aspect about this publishing process is that the community can make feedback at the end of the publishing notebook, and if there is a valuable contribution that is significant, they can be part of the citation of the notebook. We will mention about how we are achieving the citation of notebooks, but this is very important component, so that's why I'm highlighting here that make our process different what you see in other like publishing or other notebooks community. Let's wait, sorry. No. Okay, I won't go in details on this, but so far we're trying to maximize the open infrastructure out there. We are a grassroots project, so we're trying to, of course, trying to have this our first idea, this been evolving. At the beginning, we were only doing some checking of the notebook reproducibility using mini Conda marketplace action, but now we are using 2I2C report to Docker to support Python, Julia, and R kernels. But so far, you see here in the chart, like some of these stages that I mentioned in the previous table. So the notebook idea, people add this notebook idea in the EDS Book repository, and then when it's validated, we have a kind of templates. These templates have a start and a structure, and they have already all the predefined kernels in the notebook repositories, and we are using this report to Docker because it have a kind of launch binder button when you are doing pull requests that you can expect how, if your notebook is in somehow your first working version is feasible to publish. When it passed this checkpoint, we have RoHub, and Anne is going to explain about this platform, but basically RoHub allows us to have a unique identifier, and this unique identifier, we move it to the EDS Book gallery organization. That is where we have all the list of notebooks that we have published so far, and we are using certain technologies here that I won't go in details, but all the notebook repositories are containerized in Red Hat Quay.io. And we are using a technology, a plugin that we have in GitHub that is review MV to do the review process, and we are doing some scheduling of the notebooks to see that they are working. Very important here with RoHub, the first version that's published, you can assign or have a DOI through an integration between this platform and Zenodo, and this is the first step. Of course, when we have this version, we publish and we index in the Jupyter Book. And this is, of course, something that is then immediately visible in the main web page. Very important this step of the post-publication. If there is a significant report of any bug or anything new that community say this notebook is no longer working, we make a new version through this RoHub platform, and we assign a new DOI and include the person who contribute to the new version of the notebook. So that's so far. This is as I say, we are powered by the excellent Jupyter Book because for us was the easier way to generate the website. And I won't go in details of this. This is going to be covered in the demo, but just the message here in this slide is that we're trying to have a standard template for the notebook. So we have a title, we have some tags that hopefully they are going to be useful in the future to make discovery of the notebooks. And we have some badges that maybe you are familiar, the binder, license, the render. In this case, it's just a very basic continuous integration. And something that we are innovating are with these very basic badges about view review and RoHub that we are going to explore that in the demo. And then we have in the latest part of the notebook, you see something about citation. That is, I guess, is the added value of this community. Yep.
Okay, so Alejandro just showed you how we want to make like fair notebook, but fair in lowercase, so fair for people. Now I will try to explain you how we can make fair, but in capital letter, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, so fair for machine. And why we want to do that? This is because we would like to all the fantastic Jupyter notebook to be more discoverable and reusable, and we can build upon the existing Jupyter notebook. We know we have more than 4 million Jupyter notebook. When you try to find the one you want, it's very hard. So for this, we are using the concept of research object, and it allows to bundle all the different resources you have in your project, and it's something live, because when you do a research project, you have an ID, you add some IDs, then you have maybe some softwares, maybe you have some data, you have presentation. So all these different resources are bundled all together into this research object. And the characteristic is we can link the different resources with each other. So for instance, typically a Jupyter notebook needs a computational environment, so we can make a link with a computational environment. We can also have some memory requirement or some CPU requirement, or maybe some input data. How do we implement this? We are using RoCreate. So RoCreate is a community-driven way to package or to bundle this research object. It's a JSON LD, so it's a JSON text file in linked data. So it's very simple and lightweight. And we are using this RoHub, which is a research object management hub platform to store this research object. But the research object in itself is transportable anywhere. You can download it and put it anywhere you want. On this research hub platform, you can log in with, for instance, social media or ORCID identifier, GitHub, and for each research object, you always have a digital object identifier when you archive it, but as soon as you create a research object, you have a persistent identifier, which makes it findable. If you want to know more, we have written a small chapter on the Turing way, on the different research objects, and what the concept is about. I will show you this discovered metadata later in the demo, and this is to show you how we can enable a more interdisciplinary research. What are the key achievements so far? Yeah. So the key achievement so far, we have written, we hope, very good guidelines on how to onboard a community, on how they can contribute, and also very good templates, templates depending on the programming language, if you are an R programmer, if you are a Julia programmer, or a Python programmer. We have built, the community has created 10 community-led peer-reviewed notebook, so fully fair and reusable. And we are using this concept of fair research object because we would like to make them more fair, more reusable. We also have community-led and co-working meetings. So far, we have done our meeting ourselves. So we have done 18 meetings and community co-working sessions. But now we would like to, we have teamed up with the Turing way, so to make it more wider and to have more wider audience. And we also do some events to engage with a larger range of researchers. So for instance, now we have teamed up with the climate informatics, and we are running a reproducible challenge. During the month of May, we have a researcher. They didn't know each other at the beginning, and we have 24 participants, and we created some teams. So we have 7 teams, and they are from America, Europe, and Asia, and they are working together, and each team is trying to reproduce a paper in environmental data science using the EDS Book. We have given them access to free cloud computing resources, and this is thanks to the C-Scale project. So we have deployed different flavors of the Pangeo software stack. So the Pangeo notebook, Pangeo machine learning, Pangeo PyTorch, and a data science notebook for R and Julia. We hope that we will have at least 7 EDS book notebook, and they will be peer-reviewed, citable, and UL tagged. And the winning team will get £500 in the Cambridge University Press book. So now we are going to the demo.
Okay, I guess we are okay with time. So this demo is more about the general stuff about the website. So this is a website. In the left panel, you can find, we're trying to do a very minimal website with some section, but in the welcome, you can find a kind of sample of the gallery. And this is, with this click, you can go to the main gallery as well if in the left menu. But essentially, at the moment, we have this notebooks like this way. I just gonna focus in the latest notebook. That is the one that was published by a reader at King's College London. I was very peer reviewed, and this is try to follow this template that I mentioned you before. very important. We're trying to make emphasis, which is the data sources. We are the data providers. It's very important through this initiative, teaching researchers how to make the things more like fair in terms of as well to sit in where there are the data sources. But the author have static figures, as you can see here, but we are encouraging people to use more interactive plotting, and that's why we have this version of the interactive plotting of the same figure before, just to they gain knowledge about this open source tool for interactive plotting. If we go to the content, I'm just gonna focus on this big review page, and this is gonna take us about how we are conducting the review. Maybe some of you are familiar with this way that JOS or JOS journal use, but we are trying to adopt these good practices, and we are using a review notebook as a plugin that facilitates the communication between authors and reviewers. Here I'm just doing the login. Sorry, this was part of the demo, but I just want to demonstrate how usually you to connect to this review notebook. Maybe it's not essential, but this is gonna take certain time because there are many comments in this notebook, and maybe it was opened a long time ago. But while this is happening, I just want to mention that and finally I understood better how review notebook works here, because all this conversation between authors and reviewers are exported as to the pull request. So all this is bucket there. So you can see here all the conversation between the authors and editors and the reviewers, of course. I won't go in detail, but there is plenty of tests. We are trying to improve the quality of these notebooks through this process. And when everything's okay, we just having the editors confirm that everything is okay, and they close the conversation. This is the main aspect of this notebook, and this is one flavor of the notebook. This was more interested in exploring a data set about that is available in Planetary Computer. And now go to this another example that is is one of the most successful examples that we have from the community, because it's a paper that was published at Nature Communication, and the aim of this paper was about a model to do CI forecast modeling using deep learning. And this paper have a kind of figures. So we were thinking it would be nice to have these figures more interactive and try to replicate with other kind of data. So I say to the author, and also I went to the original code base, and was very hard to understand how to do this. So I asked to the author, would you like to be the reviewer of my notebook? And he said yes, and with that, at the end, now he's using this notebook as a way to demonstrate his original code base that is very complex. But with this notebook, people who are interested in the model can navigate and explore more the model. You can see here the same figures, but more in an interactive way. And we add some additional figures that were in the paper, but allow a better understanding of the paper. So all these kind of different flavors you can improve thanks to this review process and communication with the authors. And maybe this is the same review. At that moment, we weren't using the template of JOS, but it's the same. We were using the same technology always, that is review MB, to have the conversation between the author and the reviewer. Yeah, let's see how it goes this demo. I guess now we go into the review notebook, and as well, you can open this in the review notebook, but I won't go in the example. It's just to end my demo saying that in review notebook is very nice because you can see the differences, and as well, you can make comments over the certain charts, over certain static plots. At that moment when we did this reviewer, it wasn't supported some interactive plotting, but I have a conversation with the team or review MB, and apparently they are now supporting more interactive plotting there. So it's something great about using this review MB, and you can see the history of the commits over there. So that's me.
Okay, and on my side, I will try to show you interactively. So how it looks like for achieving this fair aspect. So I will go back from the EDS book, and I will use the same. It's a bit slow. Yeah. The same Jupyter notebook, and here I will click on this fair research object, and we are redirected to this research object hub, which is where we try to increase the fairness. So here you can see it's very similar to this Jupyter notebook. It has some tags, and this is how we can improve the searchability. It has the author and the contributors. It has the overview. And the content, we try to organize the content so it's also easier for people and not only for machines to find the different resources. We have some discovered metadata, so all the different resources here, when you see this small link here, it means this is external resources. So for instance, on GitHub, we don't want to change the way people are working, for instance, using GitHub. We just want to bundle all the resources together. And we are still searching from the different resources and discover metadata that maybe people will not think about. You can download this research object as a JSON file. And you can also fork the research object if you want. So for instance, to fork the research object, I will need to log in to the platform. So I will briefly log in, hopefully. No, I don't want to save it. And you see some statistics also about who has downloaded, who has reused this research object. And when I fork it here, will be redirected. You also have a Python API if you want to do it from the Python API, but I show you here from Corn. And I will fork it and say the fork is very similar to a fork on GitHub. You will have all the resources bundled and all the authorships and all the metadata will be the same. And then you will be able to change, so to add resources, to remove your resources, but you still have all the metadata of the original author. Hopefully it won't take forever. I hope so. It usually doesn't take long, but that's a demo effect. I have another one otherwise. If this is too long, let's go to this one. It's a copy. So once this is, I forked this research object, I can, what do I want to do? Maybe I want to re-execute this. So we have, I said, like a Jupyter notebook can be linked to different resources. So for instance, here, if I go to the Jupyter notebook, this Jupyter notebook is linked to a Conda environment. So then I can open it in a binder. And here, I don't use a public binder, but you can use any services. So for instance, I have access to this EGI binder. And the reason is we are working in the data science environment. We have a lot more needs in terms of computational resources, and we often use a Dask hub behind to make some computation, and this is how we can do it, because we can assign some memory needs and some computational number of CPU needs to the research object, to the Jupyter notebook. So it will start, it's a normal binder, except this is on a different kind of resources, it's on a public OpenStack. The other thing I wanted to show you is how do we want to make the fairness and how we can link the different resources all together. So if we go back to the main here and I try to edit, I will go to the resources. So I could change the author because now it's mine. But I want to show you that when I go on the Jupyter notebook here, I can assign, for instance, create some relationship between the resource and other resources in my research object. So the current resource, which is here the Jupyter notebook, I can select a type of relation. So this is how we do it. This is how we can add some memory requirement, some processor requirement, and some software requirement, for instance, for the Conda environment. Last thing I want to show you here is how do we know this is fair in the sense of findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So we have a fair assessment. So I'm not a specialist of fair, for instance, but there are many principles. But you can get some assessment automatically created for you. And you can see exactly what criteria are met and what criteria is not met. So for instance, here we see clearly that this research object 75% fair, in the sense it is findable, accessible, not that much, interoperable, very good, and reusable. But in terms of the details for each of the resources, you can see we are very far, so we still have a lot of work to do. And this is mostly what we heard in the first talk, that the notebook in itself doesn't have sufficient metadata at the moment, so we need to increase the number of metadata and the quality of the metadata to make it more fair. Now I think I can go back, so the demo is finished. I can go back to the slides, no? You want to do it or I do it? Okay, future work. So we have 3 different axes for the future work. We have divided in core feature, front-end, and use cases and community. So for the core features, this is a bit what I explained to you. We need to have more semantic annotation. So we need to give sense for the machine to this Jupyter notebooks and also to the entire ecosystem, this research object. And we have chosen research object because it's not specific to the Jupyter ecosystem, because we want to be interoperable with everyone and not only with Jupyter. We also want to automate the creation of research object, of high quality research object with a fairness of 100%. So because it's much easier than if you do it manually. We don't want to ask researchers to do it for each of their Jupyter notebook. On the front end, we want to improve the user experience for the gallery and for the tags to make it easier from a user point of view, so for a fair in lowercase. And we want to have a fully interactive web page, so for instance, using CB. We have seen it's working very well now. And in terms of use cases and community, so now we want to diversify. All the examples we have, they are based on Julia, on Python, sorry. But I definitely want to have some in Julia, and R, and JavaScript. So now we want also to invite everyone else that maybe don't do any Jupyter notebook with Python, but also to come and exemplify what they are doing. And we have, this is what I mentioned earlier, a joint collaboration cafe with the Turing Way, and this is to engage with a larger community. And if you have any contribution and suggestion, we would be very welcome. Sorry. Okay, this is here.
Yeah, and also everyone is welcome to. We're looking for reviewers of this challenge. If you are Jupyter expert, you would like to suggest how to improve this reproducibility to the participants, the notebooks that they are doing the reproducibility tasks. Please feel free, because we are still looking for reviewers. So you are welcome to join to this challenge, and we give credits as well of your work, hard work. Yeah, I guess time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the wonderful talk. I'm super excited about this. I teach reproducibility with our tools, and so you've done a phenomenal job. I'm curious about how you think about one topic that comes up often in these discussions, which is where to draw the line between a notebook or a compendium of notebooks to separate kind of the scientific narrative of a given problem, the high-level details, the production of the main figures, where the narrative form may be driven by the question or the data or the conclusion, versus kind of the supporting pieces of analysis details and whatnot that may be messier, code-intensive, et cetera. And how do you see kind of organizing that in this framework? Because so far it seems to be kind of the notebook, and I'm kind of thinking about that spectrum. I'd love to hear how you think about that.
So I can start and you can complement me. That's a very good question, and we had many discussions during the JupyterCon on this topic. So the way we see it, or at least I see it, and I think we all agree on this, that we have this main narrative, which is a bit like the paper we have, but we would have like other notebooks. So for instance, simple notebooks for exemplifying how to access the data. Exemplifying maybe how to, or what kind of analysis you have done, or what kind of plots or you have been using. And for instance, we would like to team up with a PCA project, because they also have this kind of different level of Jupyter Notebook, where you have the training itself, where we could also point to the training in the Jupyter Notebook. This is a prerequisite to understand the Jupyter Notebook in terms of training, and also the scientific part. This is what you need to understand in terms of science, and then it would be another type of Jupyter Notebook, more focusing on the science part. You want to complement?
I guess it's a great answer. Just to say that maybe something that I'm very interested is as well how we can have multi-layered notebooks. One layer, I don't know, with one button you see all the science, and interactively you can say more about analysis. It was just a single button. I see these more reactive notebooks. If that's something that we can implement in the future, that it depends on your user. In our case, our users are researchers, but in the future, I would like that decision makers can go there and explore with a ledger and just with a button, just from this notebook, just show me what is relevant for decision makers. So I see this something that maybe potential future in this through this initiative at least. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. We're running out of time, but don't hesitate to ask more questions.
Okay. Thank you.